Well, good evening, everyone. The voice you hear at this moment is Mr. Patricio. I'm the assistant principal of guidance here at Chaminade High School. With me tonight are two members of our college placement team. Our full-time college placement officer, Mr. Matt Kaplan, and our part-time college placement officer, Mr. Robert Hazelton. So the three of us have decided we drew the straws for tonight. Rather than have 5 or 6 presenters, which we've done in the past, we just thought for the purposes of a smoother presentation in this virtual method, we would go with the 3 presenters. And each of us will be bouncing back and forth with different topics that we've prearranged to discuss. And we will certainly be taking questions. If you look on the bottom of your screen, there's a tab for a Q&A. If you click that, there's a place to type your question in. Some of those questions might be answered with a typed response from me during the presentation. Others, we will save a lot of the questions for the conclusion of the program, and then we will stay on for as long as it takes to answer most of the questions. We did this several weeks ago with the senior parents and students, and it was a very effective way of transmitting information. And we had a very, very, very long Q&A session, which was wonderful because the questions were all very thoughtful, and they led to good discussions on our part. So again, we'd like to, this is a recorded presentation, which will eventually be placed on the Chaminade website under the student life section in the college placement portion, so you will be able to refer back to it. Also important to know that this is not the only time we'll be doing presentations of this nature. During the junior year, we'll probably have a couple of them set up at different intervals. They're not called Junior College Information Night, but they might be webinars or Zoom meetings about specific topics that we thought were timely at a particular moment in this process. So we completely understand that what we're dealing with in terms of an audience tonight ranges from parents who have done this multiple times with children having varying degrees of success. We also know that we're dealing with a fairly large number of first-time parents who have never gone through this process before. I think the best approach that guidance takes in most cases is we assume nothing. We begin with the idea, the basic idea that everyone is kind of doing this for the first time. And it is important to make this distinction. As a parent, you may be doing this for the 3rd time, the 2nd time, the 4th time, but for your son, it's his first time. So in a lot of ways, that's the one qualifier that brings all of this together, is that it's his first time. And we're very keenly aware of that in the guidance department at Chaminade High School. Next slide, Mr. Kaplan. I think it's important to kind of set some set of expectations from us. Not only just the idea of boundaries, but this concept of partnership that we feel has been very effective for us for many, many years. Fundamentally, the center of this process, and we firmly believe this, and sometimes it takes a little while for us all to come to this understanding. The centerpiece of this process of the college pursuit has got to be the student. I think it's not an uncommon thing in education to sometimes parent and teacher or parent and guidance counselor to remove the student from the equation, work around the student as if he was just some pliable entity. But for us, we need to bring your sons into this process if they're not ready for it yet, which everybody's level of maturity is different. That's part of what we're going to be doing very, very decidedly and with purpose. We want him to be involved. So as a practical example, you would never have a college meeting with a counselor ever without a student present. We don't meet without the student. It defeats the whole purpose of what we're trying to do. We love this kind of analogy of the student is the competitor on the field, the counselor is the coach who's got the game plan, the design strategy, has coached many games before successfully if he's still coaching, unless you're a Jet fan. In that case, well, it could be anybody coaching. The parent is certainly the owner of this franchise, and needs to be involved. Like the Cowboys owner, maybe not so much, but definitely a facilitator working with the coach and the player. So if we can get that kind of balance working, we'll have a very successful college process. And we certainly want to engage the students in this dialogue sooner than later. We're just now, in terms of a time frame, we're just starting to wrap up early action, early decision with the seniors. It does start to flatten out a little bit. So our dedication to their efforts starts to ease up, certainly by the end of November. And then it's literally a pivot to the junior class in a more robust way. At one point in time, this presentation used to be done in January, but we thought the need to move it forward in the school year was warranted, and that's why we're doing it now in October. Everything seems to have been accelerated in this process. Next slide, please, Mr. Cap. And I turn it over.
So, hi, my name is Mr. Kaplan. I have worked with or emailed and spoken with a number of you over the past few months about things like testing and anything else. And a lot of the questions that you folks have been asking and your sons have been asking, they're very good questions. A lot of them are early. I as I tell the boys, I was in the Science Center all cycle last week and the week before, just sort of getting in with the juniors and really officially kicking off this college selection process. And I said, congratulations, a lot of the questions you have are too informed and too educated for where you are in the process now. We'll get to that later in the spring. You're not up to that yet, but I've just been encouraged by the amount of students that have already taken an SAT, taken an ACT, or have one or both registered coming up. That's great. You're taking advantage of opportunities. You're not waiting. I love to see it. So what do colleges look at when a student applies? What parts of his qualifications are being assessed? The first is grades, the GPA. Our grades are unweighted. Our students are not ranked. That is never a problem at all. We look at the grades in the context of your high school and the rigor of the schedule. Chaminade is well regarded, has a national profile for the most part, as a demanding, competitive high school. If you're an admissions counselor and you find our school profile, a profile is a quick summary of our academic sort of schema, our model. You see, we have 4 years of not just the 5 major academic subjects, English language, math, science, history, but we also have a 6th, religion. So we have 4 years of 6 core academic subjects. We have minimal electives. We have a passing grade of 75. So just if you know nothing, if you don't even know how to pronounce Chaminade and you find our profile, you're a brand new admissions officer, you can see immediately the level of rigor. So the grades, I like to say not all 95 GPAs are created equal. So a 95 in one school isn't really the same as a 95 in another school. I'm very proud of our academic program and also the rigor of schedule. If a student qualifies for an advanced or an accelerated course, is he availing himself to those courses? Yes, it looks favorably. If not, it doesn't work against you, but it's just sort of the context of the grades. So there's grades, and I put that first for a reason. Up next, standardized tests, SAT, ACT, and subject test scores. Right now, for the graduating class of the soon-to-be graduating class of 2021, test scores are optional. And as I told the juniors, Juniors, if at any point I'm saying something and you know what I'm saying, you can sort of spoil the line and you can just say it in front of your family. So, so they think you have all the answers. The fact is, right now, colleges are not requiring the submission of SAT, ACT, AP, SAT2s, or anything like that. But if you were able to take a test, if you're able to adequately prepare, unlike the current seniors who had 6 months where they really couldn't do anything, and you present positive test information, which is college speak for good test scores, that could work in your favor. Good test scores, even in a test optional world, can help you get in, and it can help you secure financial merit money, scholarship money that doesn't have to be paid back. So far we have grades and we have test scores. Up next, I say essay, and then I put the S in apostrophes. There's that main college essay, that mythical creature, the college essay. It's only 650 words. It's really not that big a deal. And then there are also supplements. So for example, I had a student today who said, hey, can I share my Yale supplements with you? And I said, sure. Another one, why Hofstra? Why is it that you want to study blank at our school? So they want to look at your grades, they want to look at your standardized test scores, and they want to look at essays. I should mention with the standardized test scores, from what I'm hearing now, and of course this is subject to change, because the public health situation is very much in flux. Right now, the plan is, from what I'm hearing and reading from college admissions personnel, is that for the class of 2022, admissions offices plan on a return to their normal testing policy. So let's pretend that tests will be required. Let's study for them and plan on taking them as we normally do. A fourth component is demonstrated interest, right? So are you just throwing in the application because mom, dad, sister, brother, uncle, cousin, neighbor went there? Or are you applying because this is really a place that you envision as a home and as a place of scholarship for yourself? Have you taken advantage of opportunities to take virtual tours and register? Some campuses are open. I have folks that are going to visit campuses. If campuses are open and you're comfortable and available and that fits your schedule and your budget, you can go get on campus and walk through the gates and check out the new engineering center and look at a dorm. That's great. If not, virtual tours are available, and I have hundreds of seniors who've availed themselves to virtual tours. Maintaining a rapport with email personnel, asking questions. That's just a great way to learn more about the school firsthand, and it's also a great way to advocate for yourself by showing that you're a serious applicant. Up next, obviously, extracurriculars, clubs, sports, jobs, service, leadership. When we sit down with the juniors and talk with them and see what they want, and we look over what they have, I always have to remind kids, don't worry about, oh, this isn't for school, so it doesn't count. If you have a job, if you have family responsibilities, if you do stuff in your community, that's every bit as good and as impressive as being the president of the social studies club. Absolutely. Teacher recommendations. A teacher recommendation is a snapshot of the student as an academic, just within those 4 walls of learning, spirit of cooperation, quality of work, intellectual curiosity, things like that. And then there are other components. Are you a legacy? Are you full pay? Do you help fulfill a diversity quotient? Are you a recruited athlete? So there are all these considerations, and for one student at a school versus another student in a school, these are weighed differently. Colleges take, maybe you've heard, a holistic approach, where if these are all sort of ingredients in a recipe, we don't necessarily assess one. The holistic approach is if, that admissions officer sort of takes a bite and see how it all works together. So it's neither a science nor an art, but this is certainly a framework that applies for just about every applicant.
Mr. Kaplan, this is Mr. Petruccio. I just wanted to jump in and say that those designated points, legacy, athletic recruitment, the percentages and the weight of those differ from college to college. So as a classic example, on the high side, Notre Dame has one of the highest legacy pools, usually upwards of about 25% of its class. 1 in 4 seats are for legacies. Other schools have spaces for legacies, but it's a much smaller number. Things like athletic recruitment, only 2% of Alabama's student body are athletes, whereas 36% of Amherst's student body are athletic recruits. So you can see how all these designations are very different depending on the school. There's no set, pattern, rule, or formula for all schools that we can use and apply like a cookie cutter, really.
Exactly right. So
Is this me, Mr. Kaplan, or?
Go ahead.
Okay, all right, thank you. This is Mr. Hazelton. Thank you, Mr. Kaplan and Mr. Petruccio, and good evening to everyone. And we're going to we're going to start talking about a list that you will make, a list of schools. Your list now and towards the end of this year will be much longer than the list that, of schools that you actually apply to. I would say the average is about 10 to 12 schools that any one student, Chamina, would apply to, but your list is possibly going to, right now or soon, will be probably double that, and you'll take some schools off as you go through the process. So you can see on the screen here at the bottom, there are schools, 3 categories, I guess. You have safety schools, where you're most likely to get in. Reach schools, which would be least likely, as the name says, and then those that are, target schools are in the middle, 50-50 chance. And so in one way you could look at it, 3 or 4 of each type, okay, totaling 10 or 12, let's say. Or one way you can look at it is the only ones really that we would say you have to have are safety schools as a strategy. If you get to the point where you need reach schools on your list, well, that's not necessarily something you need if it's a school that most boys have a reach schools, because there's always that school that's very tough to get in that they would like to go. So you need safety schools, and then the rest are going to be where you fit best. Okay, in terms of putting together your list, there's like 5 factors that I like to talk about in a meeting. Number 1, do you want more of an urban environment or rural or something in between? Okay, number 2, size of school. Big university, a lot of action, sports, a lot of events, or a much smaller school, smaller classes, more interaction with professors. Number 3, realistically, how far from home would you go? Is it just going to be the Northeast, a 5-hour or less drive, or would you go down to South Florida, Texas, Midwest, or even, West Coast? Okay, that's a decision you have to make. Would you actually do that in terms of school? Number 4, money. Keep in mind, as you're going to hear a few times, you get more money in scholarship, merit, and so forth from a school that's more of a safety. If it's a target school and you get in, or a reach school, you get a lot less generally. Okay, there are exceptions, but you're more likely to get more money from a safety school. And then the last factor is what you want to study, which is of course very important, but how much of a factor will that be? If there's some things, number 1, so many, college kids today change their major when they're there. So, maybe it's not going to be as much of a factor as you think or want it to be. If you're interested in business or finance, let's say, and that's something you definitely want to do, that's great. But look, there's different avenues. You can go to a small school, major in economics. A school that doesn't have a business school. You could go to a bigger university and be in their business school. Okay, if you're interested in law, you could major in English, or you could be in a pre-law program. There's many options. So a lot of things what you want to study may not limit your list as much as you think. If you're 100% sure you want to be an engineer, okay, then we're just going to look primarily at engineering schools. Okay, but aside from certain interests you might have, there's still many options. Okay, so next slide, Mr. Kaplan. All right, so take this in here. This is not meant to discourage. I'll tell you why in a second. In terms of some of the more competitive schools, and that's of course some of the Ivy League schools, about 19,000 seats at all the Ivy League schools for freshmen. However, there are special cases, certainly athletics, as you just heard, legacy, minority candidates, donors, VIPs, and so forth. So when that's all taken in, there's only about 9,000 or less than 10,000 seats left for everyone else. What I want you to take from, and I think Mr. Kaplan, Mr. Petruccio would agree, take from this slide is not a sense of discouragement, but the realization that we all know there's so many very good schools out there that are not the Ivies and that are not the very popular Chaminade schools. And they're well regarded, and yet not many students from Chaminade apply. So we can talk to you about those schools, okay? And just as a quick word, my younger brother is a Chaminade grad and does this college counseling at a boarding school in Connecticut. And I've lost track of the times, he knows Chaminade, I've lost track of the times he said to me, why don't more Chaminade guys apply to, and fill in the blank. So many different schools. And I tell them that's what we're trying to do. So just keep that in mind. Don't be discouraged by these numbers, but think about, hey, there's other schools out there that are very good that may not be the big name school, but they are well regarded when you look for a job or grad school. All right, next slide, Mr. Kaplan. Thanks. So along the same lines, in terms of the very competitive schools outside the Ivies, in this case, Georgetown, you see some of the numbers, and for Duke and Northwestern that are very competitive, a very large number admitted through ED, which is early decision. It's binding. And just briefly on that, if you apply early decision, generally your application is due about now, okay? And the deadline for the college is November 1st or 15th. And you're saying by going ED that you will definitely attend if you are accepted. Statistically, it's easier to get in ED, as you can see here with Duke and Northwestern especially, than it is as opposed to early action or regular. But it has to be a situation where you've seen a number of schools, and this is definitely your number one school. Okay.
Mr. Hazelton,
Sure.
Mr. Petruccio here. I also want to emphasize that that number applies to highly qualified students. It doesn't mean everyone has a better shot ED. It means if you have the numbers that Duke and Northwestern are looking for, it could be that strategy. But you've got to be in that place in order for this to come into play. If that's not the case, if you are a solid candidate, meaning their average SAT score is 1480 and you have a 1410, it could be to your detriment to go into the early pool, because it is a more competitive pool than the regular pool. You're playing,
and that's a strategic point that juniors' parents, this is way down the line. We're going to help you here, build your list and get going. And that, in terms of, what Mr. Petruccio and Mr. Hazelton is saying, these are strategic decisions, so once you build your list of schools, okay, so when do I apply? We'll help you determine that. And it's not, you may want to apply early for some schools, regular for some. It depends on the student, it depends on the school. The nature of these past two slides, I think, is just to say, and over here that, it's sort of predictable. It's usually based entirely on merit. But sometimes, we just don't know. It is unfortunately not always predictable. It's not entirely fair. I attended college with people who were recruited athletes, and I applied to my college. And if they were a recruited athlete, my college applied to them, in essence. And so that's just part of it, and it's okay. It's okay. As I told the boys last week, you can editorialize it. You can have a strong opinion on it. That's fine. Ultimately, it's immaterial. This is just the way it is. When we look at these ultra competitive schools, and right, Mr. P, Mr. Hazelton, when we talk about those Ivies, Stanford, MIT, Duke, Chicago, they have all the business in the world being counted among those schools.
Absolutely.
And that's fine. It's not about finding, I don't care if you're the top kid, toward the bottom, middle of the pack. I don't care what school you are. It's kind of student you are. It's not like the silver bullet approach. It's not about finding that one school. It's about finding one of the right schools among a vast variety that will welcome you, that will challenge you, that will present you opportunities to grow and become your best. Unfortunately, and I'm doing it now, I had a few Zooms today with seniors, and Mr. Hazelton said that last year, the average we always say the magic number of how many schools do I apply to is somewhere between 8 and 12. Well, last year, the graduating class of 2020 made us look prophetic. The average student applied to 9.4 schools. There's this one line here, the third item down. Oftentimes, the most disappointment is experienced by the most competitive applicants. Yeah, the most competitive schools, by and large, are not big schools, and they have their pick among some of the most competitive, serious, motivated, capable applicants in the country, and oftentimes in the world. And so it's okay if you don't get in. That's why we want to help you build what we referred to earlier as a balanced list of schools. Some schools where you're very likely to get in, some schools where you're likely to get in, some schools where it can go either way. And it's okay to have some reaches, right? We want you come the spring of senior year, between March 15th and April 15th, when you start to hear back from everyone, we want you to have options. We realize that not everyone is going to, have a perfect 10 for 10, and that's okay. But we do want you to have options. Ultimately, it doesn't matter where you go, as Frank Bruni writes, but once you're there, what do you do? How do you really take advantage of those opportunities? So far, everything we've just presented with you is sort of a framework about how the craziness is. I heard someone say that a friend of mine who like Mr. Hazelton's brother, does our job. He's a college advisor at a school. And he says, these competitive schools, these ultra competitive schools, these top 20, top 30, whatever, it's like luxury brand shopping, right? Like Stanford, you're going after a luxury brand. But, Ferrari doesn't deny 96% of its potential consumers the way Stanford does. So let's not take it to heart. It's okay. We're going to help you find the list. And yeah, you're going to shoot for those tough schools. Absolutely. But we're also going to make sure that you're not, taking too much time away from applications that could really present you a wonderful opportunity and could potentially present you and your family with a very, very feasible financial opportunity. And, that's a big part of it. Many Chaminade families, where we live, it's very expensive, very high cost of living. They have other children in college, children in school, children in private school, children coming up. So we're cognizant of all of your needs, and we really want to help you build a list that accommodates it as best as possible. So here we are. This is
before you move on, I'm sorry. You mentioned Frank Bruni's book, and I just have to share that anecdote, the classic anecdote from that book about Condoleezza Rice, who was Secretary of State. And she's a professor at Stanford, but that's not the story. The story is her undergraduate degree is from Regis College in Colorado. But the real funny part of that story, poignant really, is that her love of political science, her desire to serve in government, started with a professor that she had at Regis College, who just so happened to be Professor Albright, who happens to be the father of a previous Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. All of that happens at a place that most of our students wouldn't even consider applying to.
Never heard of it.
And I think that's a real important factor. And one other thing about the applications and the rejections, I would say this, and it doesn't have to be this way, but a good college process, unless you go in ED, should probably result in at least one rejection. What do I mean by that? It means you tested the limits of your ability to get into schools. You reached for the highest schools you could possibly get into, and you found out where your ceiling was. If you get into all your schools, that probably didn't happen. So other than the bitterness of the rejection letter, and I wouldn't want to see get 8 or 10 or 12 rejection letters, 1 or 2 at the top of your list is a healthy thing. It's extremely healthy in this process. So I would like to see more students embrace that idea, and parents as well.
So before we build our list, or as we build our list, but before we apply, we have to we have to clear rather one big hurdle, and that's studying for these tests. And I believe I started last April sending out some messages via Canvas. Hey, sophomores. Hey, sophomore parents. It's not too late. It's not too early, rather, to begin thinking about these college entrance exams, the ACT and the SAT. Now, for many of us parents, when we applied to college, myself included, in our neck of the woods here in the Northeast, if this is where we grew up, the ACT was not very common at all. It was pretty regional, right? The Northeast was SAT. Now it's really an even split. And with the students' access to the Method Test program, who's our official, it's Chaminade's official test prep partner, students have free access to Method's online program. It's sort of like having a virtual tutor. There's a weekly study guide, video explanations for each questions, full-length scored diagnostics, downloadable review materials. They do have opportunities for individual tutoring in classes, and just like any other, just like many other test prep companies, they know the Chaminade curriculum very well. They know our sequencing. They know the potential course pathways. Juniors, if you know this, finish my line. Studying for the SAT and or the ACT is like staying healthy. I don't care how you do it, as long as you do it. And so we have some students who, Khan Academy, Method Test Prep, Princeton Review, Kaplan, tutor, not me, the company, a tutor, a class, a summer program, whatever works for you and your schedule and anything. Just real quick, if you're not familiar with these two tests, let me just start off with some of the text that I have at the bottom. Both tests are accepted equally by colleges across the country. You do not have to take both. A lot of guys do. A lot of guys also like to focus on one because they want to budget their time and their financial resources, and saying, look, every time you take these, it costs money, and we're studying, and there's the different. If you study for one exam, from some of the professionals I've spoken to, the overlap of the SAT content and the ACT content I'm hearing is around 70, 75%. So if you studied for one, the material, you're pretty well prepared. There are just a few minor pivots you have to make for the other. I've put up a sort of two columns, a very quick chart. The SAT, probably more well-known to folks here in the Northeast. Math, reading, writing, optional essay section. It's 3 minutes of testing. That's without breaks. 154 items, like I said, with an essay that's optional. It does require some test savvy. Again, it is not designed to optimize student performance. It's not. The ACT, reading, writing, math, science, and an optional essay. So the ACT has 4 sections, whereas the SAT has 2. If you look at the breakdown, the ACT gives 5 fewer minutes of testing with 61 more test items. And juniors, right, when I was in class and we were talking about the different exams, I said, who has a preference? And I was so impressed by how many guys already had a preference. They've maybe taken a diagnostic, or they've exposed themselves in some way to both of these exams. Guys who like the SAT will tell you, I prefer the SAT because I feel like I have more time. And they're absolutely right. Guys who like the ACT say, I like the ACT. I don't mind the hurried pace of the test because the questions are straightforward. One likes chocolate ice cream, one likes vanilla ice cream. There's no wrong answer. They're both there for you. It's straightforward, but it is fast-paced. The ACT does more closely resemble a Chaminade assessment, especially once we moved over to ExamSoft for the first time, and we do that all digitally on the iPad. The ACT, these tests are not designed to optimize student performance. And when you apply to school, again, we'll get into this later down the year, especially when we meet individually with students and families, you present a super score. A super score for the SAT, I'm pointing like you can see what I'm pointing to. The SAT for the super score is the combination, it's an aggregate total of your best sort of English and your best math, right? Those two best scores. So if you take the SAT 3 times, the best of your 3 English and the best of your 3 math, they combine. Your super score could be a 1500, but you've never sat down and scored higher than a 1470 on a single test administration. That's okay. Most colleges super score. Same thing with the ACT. Plenty of schools super score the ACT as well. So my suggestion to you, and many of you have done this, and if you haven't, that's okay. Figure out if there's a test for you, if there's one test that you like better than the other. And you can do that. I sent this out sometime in the beginning of the year, in the summer. I'll send it out again. Actually, I'll send it out tomorrow. I'll make myself a note. Okay, there's my note. I can send you, our folks at Method say, hey, for guys who maybe haven't started, or for families who are not familiar with the nature of both exams, here's a quick way for you to figure out which is better. Here's a more comprehensive, a deeper dive into figuring out which test is better for you. And there are different diagnostic opportunities. Again, Method partners with us. You can use whoever or whatever you'd like. I really do mean it. And I also mean it when I say, if you like the ACT better than the SAT or vice versa, that's great. That's fine. And you can pursue it, and that's okay. If you take both tests, you take a couple ACTs and a couple SATs. Ultimately, which score do you report? Which score do you report to schools? You don't have to send both, unless you're applying to Georgetown. More on that senior year. Whichever one is proportionately higher, right? So if you get, you do this well on the SAT, but you do this well on the ACT, you're not sending your SAT scores. And so as much as I hate for a young man and his family to prepare for these exams and sit down for 3 SATs and 3 ACTs and never report any of the SATs, a lot of students and families don't mind. They see it as they're giving themselves the best chance on both of them, and that's okay too. Again, taking these tests, studying for them, it's like staying healthy. Whatever works for you is perfectly fine. SAT 2 subject tests, we're not really hearing a lot about these right now, like I said, because of the nature of the test optional policy that colleges have adopted as a result of the pandemic, and which has impeded a student's, current seniors' ability to take these tests. On the left side is a list of subject tests. These are required by some schools. Not now, but maybe for the class of 2020, and you'll have to check individually by school. They're strongly recommended by some schools, but even if they're not required, these are 1-hour tests focused just on that particular discipline: French, Chinese, US history, math, whatever it is. Which math or science should you take? Check with your instructor. He or she will know which exam best aligns with the syllabus and with the coursework which you've been taking in Shaman. If you've been doing well in these courses, take them in the spring. If we can free you up in senior year and not having to take too many, because look, academically, the seniors will tell you right now, Shaman gets progressively more difficult as you may have expected. And so senior year is a load. You're applying, you're visiting, you're meeting. There's just a lot going on. If you could take these now in the spring while the material's fresh in your head. Typically, our guys, right, Mr. P, Ms. Harrelson, when it comes to language, they tend to do best in the fall of the senior year. But that's a small point that we could focus on more in a meeting. The optional writing section. Look, here's what I say. Harvard, if you send them, doesn't look at it. They don't look at it at all. Some schools strongly recommend it. And if a competitive college strongly recommends something, I think we all know what that means. It means we think you should really take it. Look, unless you've verbally committed to one school, or you have a list of schools and that they don't take it, you're already there, you're already seated, you have your pencils, your calculators, your ID, you're in full test mode, for an extra 30 to 40 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever it is, you can sit down, take the essay. It's never the thing that could keep you out, but let's just think of it instead as an opportunity for you to show, hey, I took a shot on this, and this is another area in which I can score well. So let's just play it safe, and let's just cover the bases. Fine, like I said, method test prep. There are official testing partner. Use method or any test prep resource. Really, I mean it. I don't want to strong arm you into doing it. I have recommended people to method. They've really liked it. I know the folks, they're great. You can use whatever you want. I mean it. To try out each exam at home as a diagnostic or at a testing center, usually those results are faster, to determine with which test you're more successful and comfortable. You choose a test prep plan that fits your budget, schedule, and needs. If you could finish junior year with 2 to 3 tests, especially if you have more than one SAT or more than one ACT completed, you're in really, really good shape to sit down with a counselor and figure out which schools are incredibly likely for you, which are a little less likely but still good, which are reach, which are sort of beyond reach. We can help you refine your list of schools, help you plan your visits, whether it's in person or otherwise, and apply early, which whether your early is binding or not, we'll get into that later. Again, I know I'm premature. So, once you figure out which test is for you and you take the test and you have some scores and we have a sample of how you do on these exams, then sort of, we can move on to the next test. Like we said, method, it's free. They do have some other programming that they do charge, but right on your iPad, students. And again, like I wrote myself a note, I'm going to send you again the link. There's a special Chaminade High School link, a sign-up link, and you simply sign up with your Chaminade email address and a password of your own design. And I tell the boy, like I said, class of 2022, students, parents, I'm very, very encouraged by how many of you have taken me up on my suggestion over the spring and summer and just started figuring out. And, you started right away. I love the amount of boys that have taken the test and have them coming up. If you haven't, that's okay. You're not behind. I just want to tell you now, we can do it now. There's no need to wait. The resources are there. And so we can help you. We can help you toward any end related to testing. Mr. P, take them through Naviance if you don't mind.
I will give you, yes, I think, the first thing we should all understand is that the juniors have already been introduced to Naviance.
Last week, yeah.
Yep, been set up with an account. And so, like any really good application, I think that the safest way to know Naviance is to just get in there and work the app. Change your search for colleges, change your requirements, add different criteria, see how the scattergram shifts by school from one school to the other. Familiarize yourself as much as you can with this program, just so we understood the broad approach, what Naviance is for Chaminade High School or any high school, right? It is both a resource for searching for schools in the first phase of this process. It's a place where the student can begin to enumerate a list that when he does meet with his counselor, either with his parents or just as a student with a counselor, they can pull up the Naviance account and they can say, okay, let's see what you've done. It's a form of communication between Chaminade's guidance department, the student, and the parent. So that's its first and its most important function, especially all of junior year. And if there are any questions with registration or difficulties, Mrs. DeAngelis, which is her email would always be Teresa's her first name, tdeangelis@chaminade-hs.org. She will fix any problems that might be lingering in an account. But again, let's try to have the student initiate that contact, because I think it's important that they take ownership of even something like that. What eventually happens with Naviance, long-term, Naviance switches from a resource for seeking out and finding colleges that fit your profile. It becomes a delivery system and a communication system in the application process. This does not happen for us until we reach senior year, but basically that's the way the student communicates to the guidance department. I have applied to college. One of the big sort of misnomers out there is that we somehow are looking at all the common applications of every student. That would be an impossible task. I would need 100 guidance counselors. Common App is the most popular method of applying to college. Not the only, just the most popular. And Naviance links to Common App. So in effect, and again, when we get more into this in senior year, when a student is applying with the Common App, he's got to notify us of the same application, and he does that through Naviance. But for now, until next fall, we're using it strictly as a method of discernment and information. And you'll become very familiar with the phrase scattergram as we move through this process. Next slide, please.
Here's a scattergram.
There's our first scattergram. The schools we chose to put up tonight, I think there was some thought that went into it. I would have to say, if you're looking on our website, which you have access to, and you have access to the Naviance account, which not only can show you general plottings of student applications, it can tell you our number of applicants from a previous year and 2 years ago and 3 years ago, our number of accepted and attending candidates for that school. So you're going to have a lot of information to look at. It could borderline be information overload if you allow it to be. But you should know that Binghamton has for several years now, I think last 2 years, been our #1 college destination. Highest number of students attending Binghamton than any other school. Simple fact, for the level of academic rigor at Binghamton, which is very, very high as a state school, for a national competition of state schools with Ohio State and Illinois and University of Georgia and Alabama, Binghamton is right up there in their academic rigor. But here's the difference. You're going to be hard pressed to find one of the top 150 colleges who will give you enough financial aid, generally of the merit-based criteria, to bring their cost down to the cost of attending Binghamton. And that's the simple reality of why Binghamton, as you can see, has such tremendous interest among our students, and at the same time, why they like our students as well. And you can see that there are clear lines where above which you really enhance your chances. So in this scattergram, you can see that at 1,400, your chances begin to really increase. And students certainly above a 94 average. So that boy with a 94 and a 1,400 plus is in a good position. Now, let's just also understand anything about a scattergram. It's all got to come with a disclaimer. And that disclaimer is, this is based on a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever year we're looking at. It changes. If they get an additional 10,000 applications, these numbers are going to shift. If they get more applications, it's going to be harder to get into these schools. Now, this may be the year when we start looking at the class of 2021's destination. It's going to be a hard thing to gauge because we might be looking at less applications to some schools, and that may have to measure how we look at a particular outcome. But here's, like I said, here are the results for a place like Binghamton, and you can plot yourself on this scattergram. It's okay. Here's where I am, and I have a more than likely chance of getting in to this school, and that's how you. One of the questions keeps coming up: how do I know my safeties from my targets, from my reaches? It's going to be these scattergrams that are going to tell you that. So I'm using a real number here. If you have an 80, 88 average, and you're somewhere around 1340 on the SAT, it's a reach for you. And that's the reality of it. And you're going to hear all kinds of stories about your next door neighbor's nephew and the woman that, you work with, son. It's very hard to use these other examples as a point of reference, because oftentimes you don't know the school district they come from, what area of Long Island or the country they're drawing from. Did they have a special skill that was desirable? Did they write a phenomenal essay? Did they have a personal story? So these are more the hard numbers that you can work off of. I think these can help you make much better sort of educated lists using this type of approach. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I just have some, I just want, because the next couple slides are scattergrams. And so I just want to contextualize it by saying, so if you look down at the legend on the bottom, it says accepted is green, waitlisted is sort of that purple, and the red, the harsh red, is what it looks like. No, thank you, deny. Over on the left, there's a little blue bust, right? Shoulders and a head. That's you. So juniors, you might not appear yet on a scattergram because you have not entered your test scores. A scattergram is very simply a graphic representation of where your test scores and GPA intersects against the backdrop of previous Chaminade applicants to a given school. So everything Mr. Petruccio just explained is exactly correct. This is not national data. This is self-reported Chaminade senior data. So, for example, if a school is likely, if it's safe, it's a reach, if it's beyond the reach, if it's a dream, if it's whatever, you want to see. So over here, if you look where I'm going on the screen, I have my cursor, the arrow, right? I'm on the U. This is the student, right? He has a 96 and a 1500. This is a good student we have here. So you know how likely you are based on where you fall in relation to the greatest concentration of greens, of green checks and squares, whatever it is, right? So right now, if you look where this guy is, where I have the arrow, where my cursor is, this looks really good. He looks very, very, very likely to get in. And juniors, you know this, right? We talked about this. We talked about the outlier. What's the outlier? It's that data point that lies so far from the norm, it's almost worth not considering, right? So down here, if you look down here, we have the guy who looks around an 81 and change with a 1330-ish. He got in, whereas up here, I have a guy with a 1370 and a 93 who didn't get in. Again, we don't want to latch on to the outlier. We want to figure out here where my arrow is now, how comfortably do I fall within the greatest concentration? So we're going to watch quickly now a scattergram of the same student who has a 96 and a 1500, how he lines up. His numbers are the same, but how those numbers translate to different schools and how those admissions offices behave. So that was Binghamton. Let's look at the next one. Next one is Fairfield.
Right.
Okay. So on the bottom, you look, people always ask this, is it only SAT? No, we can do ACT as well. There's a little button just right above where we did a screenshot where you can choose your test. We did SAT, you can do ACT as well. And again, there he is, the 1500 and the 96, right? You want to be in the top right corner because that's where all the green people are. This is an even better choice for him. This is the school, Fairfield, and this is exactly what Mr. Hazelton was talking about before, right, Bob? You're talking about the inverse proportion of competitiveness and scholarship money. So if you're saying, look, I want my son to go to this great school, but look, if you give me a bill for $80-something thousand, we're gonna have problems. This is a school where he is in line to receive a major scholarship. If his grades place him on the scattergram somewhere down here around the 1386 where he's surrounded by kids who got in, but also students who were waitlisted, he's less likely to receive merit money. If you qualify for financial aid, you qualify for financial aid, and that's fine. So we saw how Binghamton was, and we see how Fairfield was. Now,
Matt,
yep.
Kaplan, I just want to jump in here.
Go
I
ahead.
actually know a student who's out of college 2 years, so we're not talking about ancient history, who was the number 2 student in his high school, a very large high school in the metropolitan area, number 2 in his school. And of all the schools he got into, and he got into some amazing schools, he went to Fairfield. And one of the factors was the cost of attendance at Fairfield for that type of student came in probably, if you add it all up, less than the cost of a SUNY.
Amazing.
And that's, you know, I think when you start to have meetings with the financial aid person from Chaminade, Ms. Bianco, I think we have to be realistic about what a good financial aid package is for any student. The colleges are not in the business of giving away money. So if you get $15,000 a year, that in my estimation is a good package, except for the fact if it's a $70,000 college, 15,000 brings you down to 55 out of pocket. These are real numbers. These are not just me throwing out the worst case scenarios. These are the kind of numbers that schools like Fairfield and Providence and Georgetown are asking of people. So this is where Fairfield could actually be a school for this student, a very viable choice.
Yeah, Mr. P, but you know, as you just said, if they give you 15 a year, that's 60,000 for 4 years. In the eyes of the school, the college, that they think they gave you a lot of money. We don't, you know, if it comes down to 55 a year, you're like, yeah, it's still a lot. And you're right, it would still be a lot for me. But to them, they gave you a good deal. So it's just put it in perspective. And the other thing, Mr. Kaplan, you guys would agree that all these accepted to Fairfield, you know, all these in green, the ones that actually ended up attending, so not, you know, maybe 6 or 8, are all in here. A lot of these up here may have applied as a safety and or somewhere else went to another school. So how does Fairfield actually get these up here to go by giving them more money?
Scholarship, right.
Okay. As opposed to the other.
That's exactly correct. So we saw Binghamton, we saw Fairfield. Just remember, if you can, I'm going to go back for you. The same kid, folks, it's the same blue, right? The U and the legend, he hasn't moved. It's the same numbers. It's just plotting him against the field. So here's Binghamton, very congested. Everyone loves Binghamton. Fairfield, we love Fairfield as well, right? Now the entire population, watch everything. I'm giving a little away a little bit, but not really. The entire population of our applicant pool is going to shift to the upper right corner. Here it comes. Okay, so same kid who could just get into the engineering program at Binghamton, get into the business school at Binghamton, right? Business school at Binghamton, what do you need, 94, 95, good math scores, good, tough, rigorous math. Now we look at BC, another really popular school. I happen to know it fairly well. Here's the same kid again. Where my arrow is, you might not be able to see the blue because he's sort of drowning in a sea of purple. A purple is a wait list. If anyone's saying, what's a wait list? Ask your son. A wait list is, if I apply to Hazleton State University, my profile isn't overwhelming him or compelling him to say, yes, we're going to make a seat for him. It's also not forcing his hand at saying, no, there's not a seat. It's not a yes, it's not a no, it's a maybe. It's we're going to put you on sort of standby for now. And if something opens up, or if we don't get the yield that we expected, maybe in a month down the line, we'll let you know. So deny is no, accept is yes, waitlist is maybe. It's not the worst thing in the world. I always say, hey, maybe you can be considered again. You're still alive. So here's Boston College, a beautiful campus, Northeast, Catholic school, a lot of fun, great city. His 96 and a 1500, is it likely? I don't know. He has like a 50-50 shot. Mm-hmm. Look at who the neighbors are. Let's not look at this guy down here. Let's not look at this guy down here with just below an 86 and under a 1400. That's an outlier. Let's look at where the greens are. Where are the greens? The greens are over here around a 15 and about a 97, 98.
One of the things, Mr. Kaplan, about BC, in all of their literature, every college does this. When they list the other colleges that applicants to Boston College also applied to, so they're basically saying, this is our competition for students. They will consistently put Georgetown and the Ivies
Georgetown, Notre
as their
Dame.
competition. And they're not, that's not bragging,
No,
that's a reality. The other thing within this diagram that becomes a little bit of the art, and we're talking about, is admissions a science or an art? I would tell you that it's probably neither. It's a combination of both.
it's neither
But a
of both.
student,
Exactly
right, a student looking to really, let's say a boy walks in our office and says, with these numbers, I absolutely want to go to Boston College, period. This is where I see myself and I want to go there. Now, he has very nice numbers to work with. We might recommend to that student, go arts and science to improve your chances, because some of the greens may be arts and science, where some of the same area of purple or red could be business school applications, because the degree of difficulty for places like Nova, Notre Dame, Boston College, the business school is more competitive,
Yeah.
more difficult to get into.
And this
So
is
that's the way.
yeah, this is a strategic point that, you know, as you're building your list, and what, like we were saying before, do I apply early? Do I apply regular? Do I go binding early, not binding early? That's all the strategy. So sort of what Mr. Petruccio is not alluding to, he's directly referencing, is saying that you don't just apply to most colleges. You have to choose which entrance through which you want to go. Is that entrance the School of Education? Is it the School of Nursing? Is it the engineering? Is it marine biology? Is it architecture? Is it arts and science? Is it business? If it's business and engineering, which a lot of our guys want, I think those are very popular. Those are smaller programs. And so they could be more discerning. And so that's why you have this guy over here. These two reds are in a sea of greens. Why? Well, it depends when they applied. It depends on, obviously, their application, their holistic, how they present overall as a whole. And it's also, you know, it may be harder for one kid to get into the business school as a finance major, and it might be a little bit easier for his buddy with identical numbers to get in as an economics major in the School of Liberal Arts. And that varies from school to school. Again, that's a fine strategic point that people who've been doing this for a while, we can sort of give an educated guess. But the point is, these are the scattergrams. I walked through the boys with some of them, and you know, we actually looked at some of these schools that we're sharing with you tonight. But this is a great tool. Let's count on Naviance now. Let's not worry about, you know, teachers put their recommendations on Naviance. Mrs. DeAngelis pushes through your official transcript through Naviance. This is a research tool. It's an assessment tool. We're looking at data. This is not the whole story. This is a big part of the story, and your counselors, several of whom are not with us tonight, can help you sort of make sense of those numbers. Okay, so that's scattergrams, and all right. So Mr. Hazelton, take us through the next couple slides about service academies. I know we have some guys that are have their eye on service academies, and then we'll move into campus visits.
Sure. Okay, so with the service academies, Annapolis, West Point, Air Force Academy, and then Merchant Marine and Coast Guard. If you are interested, you should be talking to Mr. Oriamo or any of us right now, okay, very soon, or should you probably already have. It's a very, you know, as the academies go, it's a very unique experience and a very unique commitment, okay? It's not like going to any other college where, you know, you kind of come and go as you please, you know, for the most part. I feel that the best match for an academy is, first and foremost, a kid who's really always wanted to go to an academy, you know, even before he thought about high school, that kind of mindset. Not that it's not a match for anyone else, but it's very unique. It's not like any other college schedule, and in terms of the rigor of it, not only academically, but of course, socially, and the restrictions, as you can imagine, are not like, going to Villanova or BC or Fairfield. So there are certain there's parts of the application that are different from one academy to the next, and certainly academically and statistically, certain academies are tougher to get into than others, and we can talk about that, and what they're kind of looking for from not only your physical preparedness, as you see there, but also your experiences, activities. They often suggest like something over the summer, like Boys State, certain leadership activities that are important, and all are taking into account when you will apply. So if you're interested, see Mr. Oriema and or any of us, and we can kind of, off to the side, kind of go through it, because we don't have, as many looking at academies as other schools, but certainly is very popular compared to other high schools in terms of, our kids looking at the academies.
Yeah.
Next slide. Yeah.
Service academies, but also, I should have put this down. Also, if you're thinking, and you may not even know about this, and if you don't, that's okay. But when you do, if ROTC, Reserve Officer Training, like, you can do that at a regular school. So if you have in your mind something about service academy, Air Force, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Merchant Marine, whatever it is, reach out to Mr. Oriema. He spends most of his time now, like Mr. Petruccio said, we're wrapping up the seniors, and so he's with them in the AAC, but you could shoot him an email. It's very important that the application process for a military academy is almost twice as long, because there's a lot of waiting,
different stages of it.
Yeah, you need nominations, you need to schedule physical exams. You can't just decide in October, November of senior year,
right.
Hey, you know how I just put down University of Miami? Yeah, let's just see how West Point goes. It's an extensive process. My final thought on military academies, my youngest brother, I went to BC. My one younger brother also went to BC. And the third guy, I don't know where he came from. He went to West Point. He did very well there. He was a captain in the Army Rangers. He's retired now. He's just a normal civilian. And he always says, if you're looking to go to a military academy and you want to go because they have great engineering, or because they'll pay for you to go to medical school, or because you can play lacrosse there, he said, you're going for the wrong reasons. The number 1 and 2 and 3 reason that you should think about a military academy is because you are thinking seriously about a life of service. Military service to our country.
Mr. Kaplan's brother was asking me about West Point when he was a freshman. So
he was
not really asking, more like telling me in social studies class that he was going there. I had him in 9th grade, and he knew then. And I really can't emphasize this enough. This is not a way of parlaying a free education.
Oh.
Ask my mom. It's not free. 5 years, 4 tours of duty in Afghanistan, Ranger School. There's nothing free.
Right.
It's a wonderful opportunity. The West Point and Apples, all of them, they produce leaders. They produce quality human beings.
Yep.
It's just, look, I have no shame. It was not for me. And that's okay.
Yeah.
If it's for you, or if you're thinking that it's for you and you want to learn more, shoot Mr. Oriema a line. He'll give you all the context. Plus, he'll map out a nice framework of what you could and should be doing when, so that when you hit senior year, you're ready to apply. Take it, Mr. Hazelton.
All right. So in terms of under normal circumstances, pre-pandemic, we really, if we would tell you, if you're going to apply to a school, you would, would almost have to see it before you would apply, and you wouldn't wait otherwise. But now, obviously, that's changed a little bit. But down the road into the spring, if it is possible, you certainly want to call ahead and find out from a college whether or not they're giving tours or having people on campus. A number of them right now are, closing off campus at certain times because of an outbreak and so forth. So it's a week-to-week thing and day-to-day thing in some cases. So, but if you can do that and get a sense of what a campus is about, go on a tour, talk to students, ask questions, by all means, that is advisable. And it's, can you see yourself, whether it's a safety school, target school, or reach school, can you see yourself there as a student? And that goes to something Mr. P used to always say about the safety schools. Don't just tack on a school as a safety school because, statistically, you're a sure thing of getting in. It's got to be a school where you would see yourself and enjoy 4 years. And look, if it's your safety school, that's just a statistical term. That's based on numbers. It's not based on quality necessarily at all. Okay, and so you have to be able to see yourself there, and going to see the college is the way to do that. And of course, under these circumstances, you have to call ahead and check to see if it's possible, especially as we get into the spring. So, okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to take you roughly through a timeline. If you're a month or a few ahead or a little bit behind, it's okay. We can make up ground. This is just sort of a general broad strokes. From September to December, I left the summer out because I don't know. I'm just trying to forget some of the past few months and the craziness. Bring your grades up. Look, we have test optional. We have SAT 2 optional. ACT essay section is optional. No one's GPA optional. So everyone wants to see your grades, the 3-year average. They want to see what it is unweighted. Some of your neighbors and friends who have, weighted averages, I'm telling you from experience, I've seen it happen. Admissions offices get the transcript, they strip away the weights, and they recalculate. So just worry about your grades, do your best in the classes that you can take. Take tours. I left it very vague. If you can get to campus, if you want to get to campus, if you can register, get there. If not, if you can't, if you don't want to, take a virtual tour. Start getting a sense of what these places are like, both as locations for learning and living. Increase your involvement in your school and community activities. This is sort of a big one. What are colleges looking for specifically? Nothing. They just want to see what you have. Well, what are things I should get into? I don't know. What are you into? Like, I don't mean to be a wise guy when I say that, but really, if you're into medicine and healthcare, do something to that end. If you're into roller hockey, immerse yourself in activities to that end. So, next year, in a year from now, many of you will be wrapping up your first round of applications. You can't decide to join something or do something in November, December of your senior year, and it's going to move the needle. So the time to get involved now. If you're already involved, be more involved. That's great. Like I said, take diagnostic SAT, ACT exams. That way you can sort of narrow and focus your approach for these tests. Register for the SAT or the ACT or both. That's cool. And then you want to design and implement a test prep strategy. I'll say it again. Last week when I was in the science building and I said, raise your hand if you've begun studying. I was very encouraged by the amount of young men that have already begun this undertaking. That's great. So that's sort of the fall and winter a little bit. January to March, again, bring the grades up. Unless you're at a 100.0, there's always some room for improvement. If they're really high, keep them that high. You want to provide a resume and questionnaire for guidance. We'll walk you through this. This will be submitted through Canvas. We'll walk you through it. A resume and questionnaire is information, I said, for guidance. We keep that on file so that when people are ready to recommend you, we'll say, okay, well, I know this about him, but I certainly don't know everything. Moms, dads, we're also going to give you an opportunity. We did it last year. It was really great. I write a lot of letters. Mr. Hailston writes some letters too. Mr. P's written letters. We have stuff from a teacher, we have stuff from the student, and we also open it up to parents. And we say, look, we know what we know about your student, about your son. We know what he tells us. We know what his teacher told us. We know what we see. We know his numbers. We know his activities. What are we missing? So really, it's like a family affair. And it was really great. I was overwhelmed with the amount of support. So hopefully we'll do it again. Bring your grades up. You'll provide, some people call it a brag sheet. You talk about yourself and what you want to do and your strengths and your great qualities. You'll meet with your college counselor. Let's say once you have a set of number grades. So that's really in the second, sort of in the second trimester. Why are we waiting for a set of number grades? Well, look, we realize the transition from 8th grade to Chaminade High School could be drastic for some people. And there could be some bumps along the road. We also realize that the transition from freshman to sophomore year is greater than sophomore to junior and junior to senior. So we want to see now not only what your most recent grades are, but we want to see how you do in your more rigorous courses, which are your junior year courses. So once you have a set of number grades in a report card and hopefully a couple test scores, we can really start plopping you down there on that scattergram and saying, this looks like a really good match. This is a slam dunk. This is major scholarship school. This one you're close, or this is really far out of reach. We might want to reconsider. You want to meet with your college counselor once you have a set of grades. You want to register for more SATs, subject tests if you want to take them, if the schools that you're thinking about require them or recommend them. And you want to begin planning spring visits if you didn't get to visit in the fall. A lot of people don't like to visit in the winter. I don't blame you. A couple years ago, a family said, should we go visit BC? It's really great. I said, Boston's an amazing place. BU, Northeastern, BC, Harvard, MIT, Holy Cross isn't far, Emerson, Berkeley, it's really amazing. They went and there was, I think, 6 feet of snow. So they said, yeah, thanks a lot. Like, why would I said, I didn't know you were going to go this weekend. I thought you just meant sometime ever. And then finally, let's just wrap up the year. Again, third trimester is a blessing. Comps, take advantage of them, bring those grades up, keep doing more research, right? So now you've met with your counselor and you're sort of building a list of schools. I love what Mr. Hazelton said before, right? Maybe it's around 20. Maybe it's narrowing it down to 15, 17, something like that, right? A little more discerning eye because we know more. We have a better sense of what we want and what we're looking for. Visit virtually or in person. Obviously, you want to get some good information. Keep studying, keep taking those tests. We're going to have a college fair in the spring. It's normally on the third Tuesday of every May, and we have over 100 schools in the AAC, and it's amazing. We didn't get that for the current seniors last year because of COVID. So instead, what we did this year was we had a virtual fair, same number of schools, incredibly well attended. If we can have a live college fair, I think we'd love to. If not, we're going to put together another virtual one for you as well. You invite your teacher recommender through Naviance. You choose that junior teacher from whom you would like positive words sent to college about how great you are and what a great student you are. And then you'll determine with your counselor in the fall, these are the schools I'm really going for. I want to do a full court press, and these are just some other ones I have to learn more about. So this is just sort of, a general timeline. And like I said, you don't have to remember all this. This will be published and this will be made available. But the point is, it doesn't start soon. We're not kicking this process off with this webinar. It's begun. It's begun, and this will just help you keep pace. So who's your counselor? There it is. It's broken up by homeroom. You can, if you have any questions, of course, you can, reach out. But I'd say after the first semester and we have the seniors, please be patient. These seniors, they've experienced the most upheaval. The guys who graduated last year, when this pandemic hit in March, all of their applications were already out. Many of them have already heard back. It's the juniors, then juniors, now seniors. They couldn't visit, they couldn't take tests, they couldn't really do anything. So we're sort of helping them get caught up. And then once January comes around, we're going to start bringing you in, and we're going to start having meetings with the student and the parent, however you want. So this is sort of the breakdown of that. And then
one thing about that, Mr. Kaplan.
Go ahead.
You're assigned, as you can see here, if, like, for instance, with me, and I think Mr. Kaplan would agree, if, I have some of you guys for class, but you may not be in these homerooms. If you have questions, you're like, me, that's fine. That's fine. And, and vice versa, whatever, if you're in my group and you're comfortable, Mr. Oriema or Mr. Kaplan, that's fine too.
Just about every wrestler, when he has a question, he asks Mr. Oriema. He asks Coach Oriema, right? Whoever had Coach Jardina for freshman lacrosse, they go to, it's fine. This is just the divisional breakdown. It's okay. I know for many of you, I've been answering, SAT, ACT, AP courses, all that stuff. So, but this is just who's assigned, and we're very much a team effort. Webinar series. This is actually one of them. This is a much longer one, but as Mr. P was saying before, we have a video library of live and pre-recorded videos devoted to particular aspects of the college search process. Bob, which ones did we do? I'm trying to think. We did at the end of the school year. It's like what you can be doing this summer. We had one, right? Like
Right.
recruiting.
Yeah.
We have a financial aid one with our financial aid advisors. So
Right. Athletic recruitment was one.
yeah, so all those things. So just stay tuned. You don't have to be checking the website every day or every week. We'll let you know when it's there, and it's available right on our main school website. So you don't have to do anything for those. You can watch it. You can watch old ones if you want, but they're there. It's something that we put out for you because, especially now where we don't have ready access to the boys. They're not on campus all day. Email's a great thing, but everyone thinks email's a great thing, and they get a lot of emails and they get emailed out and, zoomed out. So if we can have something that's there and they can get to it when they want, and moms and dads too.
And speaking of athletic recruitment, it's not like everyone in the class falls into that category, but enough do. And
right.
Mr. Kaplan and I, Mr. P, definitely have experience with what coaches say when they say it, what's appropriate response, what questions should be asked. Is it okay? When is it okay for the parent to have more of a role? All of that is something we have a ton of experience with. And so, and what it really means to be recruited, and what is interest from a coach? What does that actually mean? All of those things you should touch base with someone if you're being recruited, because whether we like it or not, it's a huge factor in getting into, it can be a huge factor in getting into a school of any division.
Yeah.
And so please take advantage of our experience with that.
I'd like to also make a plug here, since I think it's a good spot. Several of our families will avail themselves of a college consultant, someone from the outside who takes on a role of helping to craft the essay, picking the schools, a full range of services. And I think in many ways, the thought process is, if I'm spending money as opposed to getting a free service, the cost has to make it a better service. And I can't tell you often enough, there is no aspect of what those private companies do that we don't mirror in guidance. And more importantly, there's no way they can have the knowledge of our students beyond the scattergrams, beyond what you can see on a chart that we provide. And I'm making this impassioned plea because it doesn't matter to us either way, but the truth of the matter is, one of the outcomes of a paid consultant, and we've seen this,
Yes.
Just several years ago, part of a paid consultant's proof of work is the volume of colleges they get you to apply to.
Mm-hmm.
We have had cases of students with consultants applying to 30 colleges. And in the end, what they end up with are 18 choices with a month to decide. That's not how this process should go. So I really, before you hire a consultant recommended by your brother-in-law, just see what we offer, including our financial aid consultant, Mrs. Bianco. I can't imagine someone could handle all these aspects of this process as effectively. So I had to say that because every year.
I actually had sort of forgotten about that. It's funny. Yesterday, one of the consultants called me. That's all I'm just going to say. They call me. The thing that we do, that we have working for us very strongly, and I'm not even comparing us to someone you would hire who, moonlights and does this on the side, but we have very good relationships with people in the admissions office. And if you want to advocate for a student, the college is taking that call from the high school, not a hired specialist. So, just keep it in mind. Look, you do whatever you want, but everything that Mr. Petruccio says is exactly correct. Our focus is only and always the best interest of the student, maximizing his opportunities without making applying to college a full-time job. This college selection process can be as time-consuming and as stressful as you'd like to make it. It's like planning a wedding. How long does it take to plan a wedding? If you get engaged and set the date for 2 years, it's going to take you 2 years to plan the wedding. If you do it 6 months, it's 6 months. I know this because I did 6 months. So we've done this a lot. We know our guys. We know people in admissions, right? Mr. Petruccio, Mr. Hazelton, and I have very good, sometimes long-standing relationships with the people who actually read our kids' applications. And so, we say things with conviction and with honesty and only with your son's and yours best interest in mind, because let's be honest, this is a big investment. It's a big investment looking at these silly scattergrams that is like overstimulating color shape overload, visiting the schools, sitting down, paying for applications, paying for tuition, SAT, registering, driving, dropping off. This is a significant commitment. It takes about a year. We only want what's best. We have no other ulterior motives. I don't get. We sent 17 freshmen to Notre Dame last year. You don't get commission from that. It's just this is what these kids wanted, and we endeavor to do everything we can to help them do that. And if you're not doing this for that reason, I'm very suspect of your motives. So here we go. Paying for college. We've been sort of referencing her for a while. Ms. Carolyn Bianco. She is part of our college placement team. She came on, I think about 2 years ago. She's a financial aid consultant. She's on the college placement team. She will soon be emailing you. We've just moved over to a new program called Calendly. Some colleges use it. It's pretty popular. It's pretty user-friendly as well. She's going to send a link to junior families about setting up an appointment with her. Do not wait for senior year. As she'll tell you, if you wait for your first opportunity senior year, it might be too late in terms of getting planning and what to expect. She'll tell you, I won't pretend that I can go into the same depth that she can about college finances. Long story short, there's the sticker price of the college, and then there's the expected family contribution. Sometimes they're the same, but not always. She will help you figure out what to expect, how to file these papers, what this language means. Maybe you didn't think that you were qualified for something. She's really great. Stay tight, hold tight. She's going to email a link to all senior families very soon. Mr. P, bring it home.
So in the effort to get an edge in the college process, some of you have already begun to take advantage of different opportunities. AP classes for certain, obviously a great resource. Additionally, a number of you took advantage of the St. John's Advantage program, which is St. John's Advantage program works where we are given a list of a list of classes that we offer that have been approved by St. John's. For the juniors in the fall, it was just the history course. But in the spring, there'll be other offerings. There'll be other offerings again in senior year. The St. John's program basically has only one additional assignment, and it's considered dual enrollment, which is one of the reasons why some colleges will fight not to give the credit, others do. An additional opportunity we've had over the last couple of years with great success is an actual enrollment in a college course. This is not for everyone, we know that, but it's an introduction to ancient philosophy. So the pre-Socratics, Plato, and Aristotle. It's a 3-credit course. You have to apply. There's going to be a link sent by Mr. Kaplan. It's not linked to any class that the student is taking here at Chaminade. As a matter of fact, it will be done through a portal at Holy Apostles College and Seminary. That's the school that's offering the course. But the in-house person is me. I am the professor for the class, so the students will be working with me. It's an online course, so this is one of the other benefits of this program is it exposes our students to a form of education that is highly utilized in the college level, which is online classes. I'm also an adjunct professor at St. John's, and I teach a theology course there. And again, my students are all online. If you're someone that likes the materials that we've covered in Christian humanism and consider yourself a thinker, those speech and debate guys that are out there, this is certainly a really wonderful opportunity. It is not an enormous amount of work, but there are weekly assignments and readings, and it runs for 15 weeks starting in January. Further questions on it, you can certainly direct them to me at my email address, dpatricio@chaminade-hs.org. If we can get, in years past, we've had 25, 30 students. We need 10 to form a class. So talk amongst your friends. And if it's something you think, and absolutely in most cases, those credits will transfer, because when they ask the question, was it taken as dual enrollment? The answer is no, it's not. It's actually a college course independent of Chaminade. So that really helps to get the colleges to consider approving it. So that's just, and the colleges are College of Holy Apostles College and Seminary. There's going to be a link coming to you with a lot more information, but I certainly will answer any questions you have on that. What I want to do now is just wrap up by saying we're going to do the Q&A section now.
I'm going to stop the share, and then it'll just be the three of us, and we'll take some.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I'll start them sort of like in reverse order. Sure. Will Chaminade assist with essays, Mr. Kaplan?
Oh, yes. We do. So normally we have, let's back up. Yes, we do. We have a summer program. It's a 20-hour program. It's part of our academic summer camp sort of schedule. It's a college essay writing workshop. This year we had over one half of the senior class start their senior year, and the essay is done. It is who leads this program. It's open to students everywhere, but for the first few weeks, we send out the list just for Chaminade students. I do it. Mr. Hazelton does it. Members of the college placement team do it, and upper level English teachers also do it. And we help the students find their voice, proofread, brainstorm. Writing is a process. You don't sit down and write it. You think, you write, and then you write, and you rewrite again. So there's that program. I also realize that kids are busy, and they're running around and they're doing whatever in the summer. Hopefully we can get back to running around and doing fun things in the summer. If you don't do the program, you can just share your essay with your counselor. Like I said, your college placement team is very experienced looking at these essays. Normally, we don't this year just because of logistical reasons. We have an in-house essay consultant, a retired English teacher who just sets up shop in the library, I believe, and students make appointments and they come down. So yeah, there's a variety of opportunities to write the essay. You'll be getting an email from me. Those essay prompts will be made available as early as January. So you can start thinking about it, when there's snow on the ground. You might not want to, and you certainly don't have to, but you certainly can.
Okay, next question has to do with registering for the SATs and information. So just every parent on this presentation tonight needs to become familiar with the ACT website and the College Board website. We certainly will put reminders out through college placement with the juniors, but the first thing you have to look at is when are the tests available and where. And so getting that information, we certainly can provide some of it, but it's most, best directly accessed at College Board and at ACT.com. And, another question that's come up is, about us offering more ACTs. So just for clarification purposes, in the span of 2 months, we've offered 4 standardized tests for the present senior class because they had no standardized tests. We offered 2 ACTs on Saturdays exclusively for Chaminade students and mostly seniors. It was targeting the seniors, and we did 2 SATs also just for Chaminade students on a weekday. Our ability to continue to put tests on the calendar is limited by the fact that these are our teachers that have to commit this time on a Saturday, being completely frank and honest. And we've done 4 of them, which is 3 more than we've ever done before. We're set for the November 7th SAT. Now, here's the problem. When we do a national test, November 7th is closed out. We got 250 students in like record time, but 60%, not 60, 70% of the students taking that test at Chaminade are not our students. So we're trying to find a balance. We're scheduled to give the May SAT for also, but again, it's going to be open to students other than Chaminade students. It's the only way I can do it. We can't keep taking off from school to administer standardized tests. So that's sort of the balance we're trying to pursue here with those tests. But any information you might have on that, you can ask us certainly, but I would go directly to the source. Next question, can you explain the qualification differences and college credit differences between AP courses and the St. John's Chaminade program? Mr. Kaplan, you think you want to take that?
This is a real easy one. The AP courses are more widely accepted than the St. John's courses. The St. John's courses, we have a list of schools that takes them, but that changes, right, Mr. P, year to year?
Yeah, week to week sometimes.
Okay, so week to week. So that's you know, that's the major difference. The AP is a nationally known brand, a nationally known product, whereas the St. John's is more of a dual enrollment program with high school. St. John's, Malloy, a lot of high schools throughout Long Island have it. I would say overall, the biggest difference is that the AP is its own being, it's its own entity that prepares students for a year-end exam from which they can potentially earn college credits with a certain score, whereas the College Advantage program is a slightly different take on the courses they're already taking with sort of no, uniform, standardized final exam attached to the end.
Right. So I think the St. John's program is most often used as a padding for a resume and an application. The other thing with the AP to emphasize, if you're not getting a 4 or 5, you're more than likely not getting credits from colleges for those classes. So it's not just I took APs. That does also fortify an application.
I did
shows
well.
your challenge of your course load. But really, for the purposes of transfer of credits, you need that 4 or 5, depending on the school. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. Next question is, I'm just taking them in order here now. Can we discuss early action versus early decision? Just very briefly, the due dates are the same in October. The main differences, and without getting into this, ED is binding. And what does binding mean? It means that you, the parent, and your son sign a document. Guidance receives that document, also signs it, and we are bound by that commitment. Our reputation as a school with colleges hinges on this. So we don't consider this a placeholder in any way, shape, or form. If you go ED, you're relinquishing any ability to bargain, to see what the best offer is going to be, to see what else is out there. It's not for everyone, and it is not as simple as it's always the best chance for every student to get into college. It's got to be based on a particular student with a particular college, and if that's the strategy that works best for him. So a lot more to come on that, but that's just a short answer to that rather difficult question.
Early decision and early decision and early action often have the same deadline. So I have kids applying for November 1st early action. What's the benefit of early action? You apply early and you hear back early. So they'll tell you in mid-December, hey, you're in. And you say, all right, if I decide to go, I'll send you a deposit by May 1st. That's early action. It's early, You're not bound to anything. Early decision, you sign that piece of paper, the student, mom, dad, one of us signs it, and it's saying, if I get in, I'm going. I'm not sending out any more applications, and any other applications that I do have out, I'm canceling. It's a great thing. It could be, right? I love it. It could be a great thing, but I recognize very well it's not for everybody, and that's okay. That's
Right.
okay.
All right. These next two kind of could be pigeonholed together. I'll give them both to you, and then you can. Is it advisable to take both the SAT and ACT exams? And do you recommend taking SAT subject tests?
Yeah, if first of all, do I recommend taking them? Yeah. It may not even, my recommendation may not matter, because if Boston College says, hey, you have to take 2 subject tests, you have to take them. Again, we'll see how things go from a public health standpoint and the testing requirement. Taking both the SAT and the SAT, like I said, don't take them just to see what they're like. If you want to see what they're like, just go to a test prep company. You can do them online. Just take a diagnostic. It's quicker, it's easier, it's cheaper. You get the results faster.
A couple of tie-ins to this that are very comparable. What's considered a good SAT score? I mean, the answer to that question is
1600.
where are you going to go to college? A good SAT score, we used to say 1400 was a great place. It is a great place, but for certain schools, it's 100 points away from
Not for
where you
Stanford.
need to be. Right. There's no pat answer to that one.
What's a good SAT score? What's a good ACT score? Ask the scattergram for that particular school. I wish I had a better answer. Right, Bob? Is there?
Yeah, right. It's 1600, as you said.
What's a good ACT score? 36.
Right.
No, really, that's a perfect score. Okay, 35. If I had a better answer, I would give it. No, but
right. Exactly. No, I agree.
The truth is, it really depends on the school,
Mm-hmm.
and traditionally how their admissions office sort of treats the different scores. So,
and just one thing that test optional, if you're thinking that, first of all, some of the schools that are test optional now are just doing it for this year, and
yeah,
and probably go back. But if that's in the back of your head, my feeling is all the more reason to have a good score, because you're then competing against a greater number of kids who didn't submit scores. So, and the ACT, if you're a strong student, I think you should take, in many cases, each one at least once, and then make the decision to concentrate on one or the other. Plenty of Chaminade kids do better on the ACT, and plenty do better. It's not like we have more kids doing better on one than the other. And they sometimes, you might surprise yourself. You don't think the ACT is your test, yet you do better on it compared to the SAT. That certainly could happen. You don't want to walk away from the process saying, wonder what I would have gotten if I took an ACT or an SAT. So think about it.
Yeah. Next set of questions, I'll give them both to you, because and we'll tackle this together, have to do with letters of recommendation. First one says, how many teacher recommendations should they request? And the second one says that the high school I teach at, guidance counselors also provide a letter of recommendation.
Yeah.
So those are pretty simple. We give them the number of letters that they ask for. If you're applying to only schools that want one teacher letter of recommendation, that's what we give them. We do have a large list of schools that require 2. We will make sure that the student needs to know that by going on their college's admission page and determining how many letters. Yeah. There is a school letter of recommendation that is what you're describing as the counselor written letter. It's written in conjunction with the guidance department with all of that information that Mr. Kaplan talked about earlier. The resume, the questionnaire, the parent comments, and teacher comments also incorporated. So yes, the language is very specific. Teacher letter of recommendation is an academic teacher, upper class, who would say something favorable about your son, and a school letter or counselor letter is done by the institution. So that's the difference between those.
So with this year, like, again, I didn't know, right? We had no idea what kind of access we were going to have to these kids in September. So I sent a link out to these current seniors last June. I said, all right, here, go into your Naviance, here's how to request a teacher. So what we do is, in this June, with your sons, juniors, with you guys, you're going to jump on Naviance and you will choose one upper class teacher. You'll select one now. We're not going to have you select two now because you probably don't have your list of schools set. You're still determining, you're still researching, you're still figuring out. That's okay. You should be doing that. So you'll request one teacher now in the spring of the junior year. And then in the fall of the senior year, when you have your list and you say, okay, I have 12 schools, Claremont McKenna and Hofstra and whatever. That was a weird mix of schools, but they require a second, then we require the second. We have, our amount of the amount of upper class ratio of upper, like junior, senior teachers, because that's what colleges want, by the way, junior, senior teachers. Junior, senior teachers to students, if every kid gets 2 letters, it's not happening. So they select the one now, and then if they need a second one senior year, they requested senior year. And it worked out well because it gave our teachers the summer months to write those letters. And I always say the letters come from 2 different angles. The teacher letter gives the college a sense of what kind of student and learner and participant the applicant will be in the classroom, and the counselor letter talks more on the person, what kind of roommate, what kind of study group partner, what kind of community member this person will be. So between the counselor letter and the teacher letter, it's like looking at a diamond from different angles and seeing how it shines.
Okay, next couple of are all over different topics, but can you talk about strategies for building rapport with an admissions personnel? If you're talking about student rapport, here's my first point. I think I can say this emphatically. Rapport is not built up between a parent and an admissions officer. Ever, 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 ever. It has to be generated by the student.
I hear about it all the time. No,
I don't want to overstate the value of rapport. It's not easy when they are seeing thousands of students. Truthfully, the biggest way to connect with the admissions officer of a college is when you write that essay. You need to hook that person with your essay. Your story is going to do that. Certainly, if there are virtual visits from the colleges to our campus and you're thinking of applying, you need to be in any of those virtual opportunities. If you go to campus, make sure you are registered as having visited campus. These points of contact are how you demonstrate interest. That's how you build rapport. But I other than the very small liberal arts colleges who have a very sort of hands-on approach, a representative from the Northeast of the United States who's going to be looking at 7,000 applications, you're going to be very hard pressed to build a rapport, period. I think that's important.
What I've seen that works, if you reach out, hey, my name is Matt Kaplan. I'm a rising senior at Chaminade High School. I was sitting with my counselor, Mr. Hazelton, and he said I should look at Hamilton. I'm going to be applying in the fall, and I just wanted to save your time. Save your time. What are you calling that admissions officer to do? Nothing, right? He or she will know you're interested when you apply. So what should you do? If you want to reach out and you want you want a back and forth, you want your name in front of that person's eyes, I get it. It's competitive. You want to give yourself an edge, no problem. Ask questions. Don't ask any question. Ask an informed, intelligent question. Let me qualify that. Don't ask some question. Like, how many majors do you offer? Don't ask a question that you could just find very easily on the website. Ask a question or questions that show not only an interest, they say demonstrated interest. Amateur move, demonstrated interest. Of course, yeah. Show a demonstrated informed interest. Show a demonstrated passion. Show a demonstrated plan. For example, I want to major in finance and theology. And this is an actual thing that's happened to a kid. He asked me, and I said, I'm flattered you would think I would even know the answer to this question. You need to contact admissions. He wants to major in theology, some sort, and finance. He also is hoping to run cross country and he wants to study a year abroad in Australia. Is that possible? It turns out he can't do that, but he can go for 1 semester. Right. So it's like, why is that a good question? Because the admissions representative now, instead of, hi, my name is Matt Kaplan, Mr. Hazelton said Hamilton might be a great fit for me. What's going on? See you in a little bit. No, now it's, wow, like this kid from Chaminade, like he really has a plan. He understands this. And look, these admissions people, I work with them all the time. I communicate with them regularly. One actually texted me while we were on here right now about a particular thing. If you could convince them, and I'm not saying to like BS some kind of thing, like if you're really into it, right? And if you want to build a rapport with the school, you really care about that school, right? Say, hey, when I was visiting, I was the tour guide or the information session, you know, I'm stealing this from Mr. Hazelton. He said this a while ago, and I'm crazy about it. Relating something back to your experience and your plan. Hey, he said something about this, you know, like, how could that fit with my situation? Or, you know, like a question about applying, or a question, you know, just showing that not only am I into the school, but I've already begun thinking about it and I've begun giving it thought. That's a way, that's a really great way from the comfort of your own home or right from your phone that you could communicate with the person who reads your application, so that when October, November, December, January, whatever comes around, oh yeah, this was the guy who wanted to study marine biology and was interested in whatever, or he wanted to be a history major, but also he you know, like all of these things where you can sort of share your plan and your passions and your curiosity, you know, an informed question that could potentially help you stand out. But you know, there are a lot of folks out there applying. So, you know, visiting, virtual visits, anything you can do to help yourself. You know, you want to be your own best advocate. So.
Next question. Can you explain the difference between a 4.0 and a 5.0 grading scale and how to calculate average?
Yeah, no, we don't do any of those. So.
Easy enough.
Like, how do we convert our grades to those?
That's yeah, my.
Yeah, we don't. We don't. I've
Let
seen
the college do it.
Yeah,
Let the college.
I've seen several different conversion scales. If it's necessary for a scholarship or something, I actually pick up the phone and I call the office and I say, look, here's the deal. We don't convert. I've seen a college board scale that says a 93 and up unweighted is a 4.0. I've seen another scale that says that's a 3.7 and 3. So I proactively stay away from converting to 4.0 or 5.0. We go to 100, no weights, take it or leave it, and they take it.
Any thoughts on the CLEP tests?
The
CLEP.
The English language test.
I think that's what they're referring to.
I don't know what. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on it? No.
Yeah, I'm not. No context. Sorry.
I don't.
All right.
Yeah, because I don't know. I know what they are. I don't.
Sign up for a subject SAT. Same way you sign up for any SAT through College Board.
Yeah.
College Board. You have to. If you're not becoming familiar with these websites,
Do it.
you're missing something. Question from a parent: can you retake a subject test, SAT 2? Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. Chaminade offering an SAT in the spring, May, but it's a national test, which means that all students who go to the College Board website are eligible. And a lot of people are asking about us administering in-house tests. These are days off from school. That's the factor that's causing us the most consternation. I can't, you know, back to our original point about all of this, academics in the school are more important than these standardized tests. I can't sacrifice it. We're in the midst of COVID. We've had to limit, obviously, the students to the synchronous days. We just can't afford the time that it would take. As much as that makes people's planning difficult, that's the reality. A lot of SAT stuff. The PSAT, Um, if you're setting up your College Board account, you don't have to use the school email, but you need to be consistent in using whatever email you use when you set up if you set up an account, stick to that one, because everything coming from College Board is going to run through the same email at that point. And look, we've had some embarrassing moments in standardized testing. Parents have registered themselves to take standardized tests. Okay, I know that it's just easier sometimes with a cup of coffee at your desk to register your son, but that's how that happens. We've had parents in the application process put their names and dates of birth,
Date of birth, yeah.
their sons. I don't know how else to make that point more clear. Results from the PSAT will be available in December. That's how it works. It's not up to us. What else? I mean,
The priority is getting those fall SAT scored and those distributed and posted online, and then sort of after that rush, then they do the PSAT. So.
Yeah. One other question about when are you done with the standardized tests? Kind of that's the nature of the question. You're done when you listen. If you leave it up to your sons, they're done after the first time. No young man is waking up any morning going, I can't wait to take another standardized test. He's thinking, I hope to God we're finished with this. The reality of it is you might see trends. If he's flatlined and he's not going up and you've done it multiple times, he may be done. We have students, though I do see that students' scores in their senior year oftentimes are statistically better than what they've taken previously, but it's not a guarantee. Can you clarify the student report's best combined SAT and ACT score? I guess it's talking about super scoring.
Yeah, you could super score just you super score. You don't do it like across, like between the different exams. You have a super score for the SAT and a super score for the ACT. So there's no such thing as like a combined SAT and ACT super score, because one exam is 2 sections, each of which is 800, and then the other one is 4 sections, each of which is out of 36. So,
all right. Next question: are colleges aware how many times to take these tests?
Only if you report them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could take them 5 times. I mean, I know one school that requires you to send your entire testing record. Georgetown. Other than that, you could take the SAT 5 times, report it once, report 2. Whatever's for your ACT. So, yeah.
Next 2 questions are, I think, similar. Can you explain need blind? Does this impact financial aid? Yep, it's pretty much the same question twice.
Does it affect financial need blind? Well, what do you mean? Does it? Dan,
I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
Need blind is more of a we accept or reject without looking at finances.
Right. If you qualify for financial aid,
right,
you qualify for financial aid. If you're like a slam dunk, like obviously you're getting in, you're going to get whatever financial aid you qualify for.
Right.
If you barely get in, right, you're like sort of toward the bottom of that most recently accepted class, but you qualify for financial aid, you qualify for financial aid either way.
And if a school is not need blind and you are a full pay candidate, you want them to know that, because that does affect that could affect getting in or not.
It could. Folks, I would say don't forget. I don't know if you knew this, maybe if you've done this before, you may know. Because of COVID, we don't have that international applicant pool. And the international applicant pool is great because these are world culture is being shared among campus. Yeah, it is. The world, those kids from all over the world, they're full pay. And I don't know too many of them who are rushing to go study at NYU or wherever during a global pandemic. So colleges are without a big chunk of their applicant pool that just happens to be full pay.
Right.
So just like Mr. Hazelton said, there's a question: are you pursuing financial aid? And if you put no, those are the kids that, at least on the wait list, tend to get plucked off the wait list the fastest.
All right.
It-
This next question is going to give me my opportunity to plug the book that I think you all need to read. Question is, how long is the average college application reviewed, and by how many people? The newest book out on college admissions is a must read for everyone on this webinar tonight.
Good.
The title, Who Gets In and Why? A Year Inside College Admissions. Who Gets In and Why? A Year Inside College Admissions. Jeffrey Selingo, Selingo. He was able to get direct access into the admissions process at several top schools. Last time this was done was Jock Steinberg did it about 15 years ago. And here's the sobering reality. Average read, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That's the range, because especially with schools that have large applicant pools, they just don't have the resources. Most schools do a dual reading, so every student is read by at least 2, primary and secondary, and then it goes to committee. It's always going to be the primary reader is always going to be the rep from the area from which you are applying. So that's sort of the short version of that. Next question has to do with the college reps visits. In addition to the spring college fair, and I really want to emphasize, I'm not a person that predicts the future. I would find it highly, highly, highly unlikely that we will have an in-house college fair. It is more than likely going to be the same format as the seniors. It was done virtually, and it was excellent. That answers the second part of the question. Colleges are not committing to sending reps to our school, and we are not in a position to allow them in our school for the near future. And I think that's going to take us through most of the spring as well. I mean, let's be realistic about what we're facing here. That's our reality. We'll make the best of that reality for all of you, I promise.
What we did this year for the seniors, we had the virtual college fair, and like I said, we had, I don't know, 106 whatever schools. But then if there were other popular schools where we send a lot of kids or we send a lot of applications, or and they couldn't make the fair, we schedule also individual virtual visits.
Yep.
So we're gonna
getting very creative, and we're
we're gonna get. And look, the truth is, right? Like, I know this is gonna sound like a little whatever, but it's true. Take it as a compliment to you guys. Mr. Hazelton, right? Tell me. College admissions personnel, by and large, want to be in touch with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Like
Yeah.
they want it. They know we have a lot of really good kids.
Mm-hmm.
They know it. And so, I had someone say, hey, look, I'm not gonna be able to make the fair, for whatever reason, but I really want to be able to share information and answer questions and share my contact, blah, blah, blah. Could we set something up for one afternoon? And I say, sure, no problem. You give me the link and I promote it. So I've been doing it with the seniors all fall, and I kind of like the model. And I think that's the plan for that we'll do for spring. We'll have a big virtual fair, and then whoever can't make it for whatever reason, we'll set up another virtual visit, rather than having, me sharing with the kids, 100 and however many different individual links. That you just get zoomed out, I guess, is the point. So.
Okay, next question is finding out about merit scholarship colleges offer. Straight up, best place is their admissions website.
Yeah, that's the biggest money you'll get is
And some of the colleges, and I want to use the University of Dayton as a classic example. My youngest daughter went there. When you go to their website, they break down their rewards in categories, basically saying if you have an A and you have 1,400 SAT, you can expect this range, and they'll give you a range of, let's say, 90 to 110,000 divided by 4. And my daughter ended up, I plotted her out ahead of time, and she got the high end of the category that she fit. She got the high end. I love when schools are transparent like that, where they show you everything up front, and it's not like an Easter egg hunt where you have to go searching for it. So I think that's really important too. Next one is, you said schools weigh the importance of being recruited for sport, legacy, paying full for admissions differently. How can we find out specific schools how they weigh these? Listen, there are tons of these sort of blogs out there, and parent portals and student portals. There's tons of information about schools. Some of it is accurate, some of it is scuttlebutt. Sometimes you can actually ask the rep for like some sort of guidance on that. And depending on their transparency, they'll tell you the numbers. As I said to you, Amherst College, 36%, I think, of the students there are athletes. That's a high number. And Notre Dame, it's 1 in 4 seats for legacies. So,
and Amherst is a highly academic school that's certainly not considered a sports school, and not you would think a big emphasis on sports. I think to Mr. P's point, athletics recruitment is probably the most consistently strong factor, whether we like that or not.
Right.
Legacy can, touch and go. It could be hit or miss. Other things, not sports though. Sports it can be a huge factor for many, many, many kids.
Pivoting to a question back to Naviance, wanting better explanation on what it does. So the colleges are not looking at our Naviance account. It's not that way. The boys are going to start placing schools, and they're learning this in college prep. So we're not going to do a tutorial for the parent tonight. Your son will be well versed in this. You can start selecting schools I'm interested in, and that's how you build your list. And eventually it pivots in the fall of senior year. Those same schools have to move to the category of schools I'm applying to. So there's 2 different designations, but right now it's just a kind of a placeholder.
Colleges don't see anything on Naviance.
No.
They see things that we send to them through Naviance. It's sort of like a portal. For colleges and for our office, it's a portal. For parents and students, it's a research tool. It's a search tool.
Question about essays section on the standardized test. Do most colleges not look at it? It really depends on the college. I think that was answered earlier. More importantly, and I will say this, universally, our students tend to be good writers.
They do pretty well, yeah.
Generally, the writing section helps our students.
Yeah.
Unless you're a strict math science guy, that would be the case. Registration for the essay writing summer camp comes out when, Mr. Kaplan?
January, February.
Okay.
Yeah, you will receive an email from Mr. Otten in the assistant principal's office.
Right. If COVID numbers go up again, will Shaman consider doing another seating for the ACT? I can't answer that emphatically either way, but I'm hard pressed to find time and places for these. We'll certainly have to see. That's the best I could say on that question. I don't want to commit to something and not be able to deliver. Someone's asking about Ohio State and Penn State taking 3s on APs. That's a question you're going to have to pursue.
Yeah.
College specifically.
Yeah. So no one takes below a 3. The lowest score that colleges will give you for credit or partial exemption would be a 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Next question is, what determines a safety school for a student? Because, well, the answer is 100% certainty. Based on all previous applicants, your son's grades at Chaminade High School will get him into that school. That's a safety school. That's the only way to look at it. All right. Target school is 50-50 at best. And range schools can range from a 5% chance of admitting. I also think there's a fourth category. People don't like to hear it, but it's called the wish. I always wished I could go to this school. Absolutely apply. But that's a category above reach.
Just do that once though. Don't.
You should only have one of those.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
so I think like what makes it a reach is the same thing that makes it a safety. How far are you from the top right corner where the greatest concentration of green checks, which are symbolic of acceptances? If you're surrounded by all greens, it's
Good.
pretty safe. If you're surrounded by some green and some purple, you know, you have a shot. If you're surrounded by mostly reds and some purple, it's a reach. So,
Okay, a couple of last ones. If about FAFSA, filling out FAFSA, let's really hold that. There's going to be a financial aid meeting in October of your senior year that answers questions. But generally, if you're looking for any kind of money, merit or need, who doesn't want merit money? Many colleges would expect you to at least fill out FAFSA the first time. I did it with one of my daughters, and after that, I didn't have to do it again.
Dan, could they check out on our website? Gene Rogers just did his thing.
Yeah,
It's
that's posted.
it's recorded. Folks,
Yeah.
if you go to anybody with financial aid questions, or even if you don't, because you don't have any questions yet, because you don't quite know what to ask, because you've never done this, if you go to Chaminade, our main website, chaminade-hs.org, student life section, college placement subheading, there are some videos, and you'll see like the webinar series I was talking about. What was it? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we
Yep.
had a financial aid advisor from Malloy College, used to be at Vanderbilt. He joins us right annually, and
Every year.
he did like a 2-hour program just like this, only on financial aid. He presented his slides, he answered questions. Check it out now, by all means. If you have questions, use the link that Mrs. Bianco will send out for appointments, but you can sort of get a head start now.
Next one is an interesting one. Is there any way for schools to reach out to specific students that may be interested in recruiting for academics? Well, that's back to the book recommendation. So if the school is in need of applicants, there is a entire science of how to push out information to solicit responses from students. Just remember that this helps build an application pool, which then if they reject more students, their yield changes, they get higher rankings. So any form of recruitment you think is being done is solicitations in almost all cases. And with rare exception, if you happen to be a minority candidate and you're receiving something from the school's liaison for minority applications, that's something you would want to pursue. But generally, anything that sounds like recruitment could be recruitment to reject. It could be part of that strategy. So
they're recruiting your application. So if I'm an athlete, right, and Mr. Hazelton is the soccer coach, he will actually reach out to me, or he could reach out to me and say, hey, we've seen this, blah, blah. You send us a transcript. We'll do a pre-screen. Are you someone that we can recruit? Are you academically up to snuff? Would I be able to get you through to admissions? Because I don't admit you. I'm just a coach. He'd say, we need to get you through admissions. So if it's determined that my grades and scores or whatever are good enough, then they recruit me. No one says, hey, saw your name on the honor roll. We'd love to have you. But what they would do is they get your information based on registering for an SAT or an ACT or a whatever college fair event, something like that. And they could say, hey, think about our whatever summer program. We have this scholarship. You can apply to our honors college. enter this code in your application and it's not going to cost you $70 to apply to our school. That doesn't, oh my goodness, that doesn't mean that you're going to get in. I mean, it might, but it, like what Mr. P was saying, sort of recruiting to reject, like they're just encouraging you to apply. So it's not as clear cut. When you're being recruited for athletics, you know, like they're telling you, if you apply for this deadline, we'll support your application. Academics, it's a little more nebulous.
Next one is how much control over what is the effect, I think that's, does identifying under a minority have over admissions? It's a factor, like legacy, like athletic recruitment. It's a factor. I can't put a number on it. I can't put a percentage on it, but it's a factor. And certainly
Schools want balance.
there would be no reason if you qualify as a minority candidate not to put it. There's nothing I can think of that would stop you from doing that at all, period. When the boys list colleges on SAT, does the score automatically go to the college? I don't know what they mean by list.
Yeah, so I know what you mean. At the end of the SAT, you can enter a code to have your scores sent directly to the college.
Right.
If you do that, so if like last week, a bunch of seniors, like 200 seniors, took the SAT, right? They were in the AAC. At the end, I said, all right, guys, I have the 4-digit codes for these schools. If you know that you want your scores to be sent, on your answer sheet, there's a place where you can bubble in the school codes and it gets sent there automatically. Most people don't do that because they say, I don't know what these scores are, so I don't know if I want these scores to ever see the light of day. So normally what happens is, right, Bob, like most of the time,
Definitely.
Take your SAT, you wait the 2 weeks to get the scores back, and then if you like it, you know, you could send it in the senior, or you say, okay, this was good. Let me see what happens when I take it again in 2-3 months. Oh, wow, now I have my super score. So no, basically you have total control. When you want to send the test scores, you send them as soon or as late. Right now, as a junior, when you take them, I wouldn't advise you sending it directly anywhere because we're just getting started. Yeah.
Exactly.
What's considered, I want to handle, what's considered legacy when a student's grandparent qualify? The answer is no. It's parents only, not uncles, aunts. They may take a look at a sibling. The classic story is Notre Dame. This family in the 1960s and 70s and 80s sent like 7 of their 10 children, or whatever the number was, to Notre Dame. But back then, the girls in the family went to a different school. Fast forward, the grandchildren started applying. This guy was given an award at graduation, the father of all of these children. Now he's a grandfather. And when his grandchildren started applying, the grandchildren of the graduates of Notre Dame with lesser scores got in when his grandchildren with better scores whose parents didn't go did not get in. So it has to be limited, because if they don't limit it, then that number would be through the roof. If colleges super score, don't they see the sections of the exam you send? Meaning, can't you just send a certain section? You send the entire exam, correct? Look, I think that comes under the umbrella of the goal of the college admissions office is not to find the reason not to admit you. Someone with a highlighter in admissions is simply highlighting best scores and putting them together. They're not micromanaging all the sections of all the tests you sent them. They just need a point of reference. They need some point to compare to students. So I really think a lot of people think about that idea of, the admissions is sitting there trying to find the reason not to admit their son.
It's the admissions office, not the denials office. This isn't to say, obviously, that they want to admit everybody. I know somebody at Boston College who used to do that.
Literally.
Data entry for SuperScore. So
the
question's good. Do they see the lower sections? Yes, they do. They see that as they're going by and looking for the higher sections. So, it's easier for a college to assess a student at his or her very best, rather than saying, well, here he got a 29 on math, and here he got a 34 on math. Is he really a 29 or a 34?
I don't have time for this.
Yeah, it's just like we said.
5 to 8 minutes per application.
If you're lucky, you're getting 12 to 15 minutes on your application.
Right. Do
So
all schools offer a legacy admission? I think all schools are keenly aware of their legacies.
yeah.
I think the answer is yes.
I also think, unfortunately, you'll never get a straight answer.
No. This is the veiled secret
Oh,
part.
we consider everything, and yes, we have, we're so lucky to have so many wonderful families. I've heard them say it. I don't know.
Got two quick ones, and then and then we'll wrap up with these other last two. The first one is about how long ACTs and SATs are held on file by the. I think it's indefinitely, to be honest with you. That's there's no reason for them to post that information. And this one says, do you need to take the essay on the ACT in order to superscore it?
No.
No. Answer is no. Okay. Two last questions, and then we're going to wrap up because this. Are there tips to help my son get a feel for the type of campus he would best succeed, or is it simply up to the visits? I think there's a set of questions we can ask at guidance that could help direct that conversation, certainly.
Yeah.
Next one, last. Are you well aware, as you are well aware, many students go to college thinking they have chosen the right major of study. In your professional opinion, what is the most important step that students must do to ensure a successful and academically rewarding college experience from the start to avoid stagnation? What exact steps do you think they must do to help direct their choice? Wow, that is what
choice of major you're talking about.
Yeah, like how to. It's the happiness question, really, is what it is.
Exactly.
I think you have to move beyond just what's a marketable, major. Like yes, look, at the end of the day, college has now more than ever become measured based on, will my child get a job from this experience? That still has to be a factor. But at the same time, there are jobs and there are jobs. Students have to be realistic and honest with themselves. We had a famous Chaminade graduate who used to talk to the junior class, political analyst, who's no longer on television, but he used to say that in his choice of how to find his career, he said, you find out what it is your gift is, what you're good at. Everyone has been given gifts by God, and I believe this to be true. And then try to find a career that allows you to utilize those gifts, because then you really will be doing something vocationally rather than a job. That's what we're trying to get the boys to understand. Yes, accountants are guaranteed to get jobs. If you don't like numbers crunching, you're not a candidate to be an accountant. So I think that's sort of what has to happen. A lot of self-discovery goes on in this process.
So avoid majoring in French.
What was that?
Avoid majoring in French. Let's go for economics, right?
Bob, what did you major in college? French poetry?
Right, French poetry. Yeah.
What a waste of time.
Yeah.
Groundhog Day.
Right.
All right, folks.
Thank you.
There are still 100 participants. We thoroughly, I hope you get the sense that we like our jobs. We really do enjoy this work. You're in good hands with us. I'm confident that we can get a good outcome for your sons if you just work with us. And today was the first step in doing that. So, Mr. Kaplan and Mr. Hazelton, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.